everyone. Hi. I think that says Ewan Logan. Sorry if I totally butchered that, but hello. How are we doing today? People are really hopping on. Hi, everyone. Ask me anything. Impromptu live. I had some time, just downtime today, and I didn't really feel like doing any reading or writing, so I figured I could hop on here. DJ Mello, you should become Catholic. Hi from Nebraska. It is a blessed day, and I'm going to have a really fun night, so I'm excited. Oop, that's a lot. Hang on. Love this. Revert Catholic, uncatechized as a child. Favorite resources for reverts/converts, and favorite resources for moms to use to catechize their kiddos well. Okay, so two parts. One, I have an email list where if you sign up, I send you a free ultimate guide to jumpstarting your catechesis, and there are 7 steps in there, and it has a bunch of tips, tricks, resources, and specifics. So for example, one of the things that I recommend is you get into podcasts and YouTube shows and videos and stuff like that, and I recommended a few, like the How to Be Christian YouTube, and Father Mike Schmitz, he's got in a bunch of podcasts, and Holy Hot Mess Mom. So there's a bunch, and that's just a couple examples from one of the steps. So if you sign up for my email, which is in my bio, if you click on that link, you'll see it. It's in there. You'll get that guide, and it's what I had to figure out over many years of doing it by myself, just ready to go, signed, sealed, delivered. As for resources to use your catechize your kids, I'm working on a similar resource for parents with children. Obviously, they're parents, right? But off the top of my head, there are, I'm looking in here to see if I have it, and I don't think it is. I think they're both by the table. But I have a book, I think it's called A Saint a Day, and that has a saint a day in it, and you learn about it. There are also saints flashcards, and there's something like a saint a day coloring book, and that one I know I have on my Amazon storefront. If you want to just go see it and look at what it is, I think it's split into 2 parts. So there's one coloring book for the first half of the year and one for the second half of the year. And so we have the coloring books so they can color the saints. And then we also use the book and the flashcards at meals. We'll pull it out and we'll draw a card or open up to like the specific day that we're on, and we will read about that saint. A lot of really, really, really good high quality books are out there now, including Stories of the Saints. That's really beautifully illustrated, although that's for kind of an older set of kiddos. So it also just sort of depends on the age of your kids. So that was a lot. I hope that wasn't too much and that it was helpful. How did you know you wanted to be a catechist? I didn't know that I wanted to be a catechist. I accidentally became a catechist. I started teaching 2nd grade because my church needed teachers. And as I was teaching, I was like, I like this a lot more than I thought I would. But honestly, I don't really like teaching little kids, which is rough because my kid was in that class. But it's true, I just don't. And so the next year, I started teaching it's OCIA now, but RCIA, OCIA 2, which is for kids who are behind on their sacraments, but they're still kids. So they just kind of need to catch up. And for some reason, all of my kids were 4th grade. And I wound up liking that a little bit more because I could be a bit more like funny with them. And I also didn't have to follow a book in that class. I just got to teach whatever. As long as I followed the topic, I could teach what I wanted to teach. And so I got to make the lessons. I really enjoyed that. And that sort of led me to thinking that I had, hastily dismissed teaching in general. And because I liked being a catechist, and I was realizing that I liked teaching, I would actually probably really like teaching older kids. And so now I think I'm leaning more towards getting my higher education in theology and actually being a professor. So that's how I found that out. Hello to Worth the Detour. Tips on becoming as cool as you. I am not cool, but thank you for a pure world truth. What does it mean when St. Thérèse of Lisieux sends you a rose? It just means she's heard your prayer, she's prayed for you, she's gone to God, and it's supposed to be a sign that like your prayer is answered. So I have, it's actually right here, a shower, I'll show you this. This is the stack of books that I'm currently reading. I am varying stages of in the middle of all these books, but this one, I know it's going to be backwards, but Shower of Heavenly Roses, I've talked about it before. has a bunch of stories in it. They're all like excerpts. I always call these good toilet books because you can just sit down while you're using the John and then read your one little excerpt and then close your book up and be done. And then you weren't on your phone. You were actually edifying your soul. But this book has a bunch of stories of people who were like, you know, I was really worried about whether my spouse went to heaven. And so I prayed to St. Thérèse and she sent me a flower. And there was one in here actually that was particularly funny where somebody asked St. Thérèse to send them a bird, I think. And when they said that prayer, they were like, I know that she doesn't usually send birds. She usually sends flowers, but I want a bird. And so they said this prayer, and then they were staring out into their backyard, and a bird came and landed and sat on a chair in their backyard. And they sort of thought, there's no way, this is so fast. And then the bird sort of looks to its side and starts digging in its feathers and clearly picks something out, drops it, and flies off. And so the author of that story went over to see what the bird had picked out, and it was a teeny tiny little flower. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. She's like, I send flowers, not birds. My brother can't go to church. Could he take the Eucharist at home? So it depends, right? If he can't go to church because he's unwilling, then he can't. But if he can't go to church, say, because he's sick, like my mother was in hospice and she was unable to go to church because she was in hospice. And so my dad was able to become an extraordinary minister of the Holy Eucharist. And so he got a pyx. And at the end of every Mass, he would go to Mass and take his pyx with him. And then at the end, they would call them up and they would place a Eucharist, like a host, I guess, in the pyx. And he would take it home and then he would administer to my mom. So if it's that circumstance, there are definitely avenues to do something like that. But if he's in a position where he cannot go to Mass to receive, you should also ask about, if it's an illness, about the anointing of the sick, because you can receive that any number of times in your life and get those graces if he needs them. Please pray for me. I am weak in belief. I will absolutely pray for you. I want you guys to know I pray for all of you every day, for your intentions and for your conversions. And I say that not to be sweet, but honestly because people tend to do better when they know they're being prayed for. So I want you to know that I am praying for you every single day. What advice would you give to confirmation catechists? That's a good question. So in my diocese, confirmation happens for third graders. And so my daughter's third grade teacher has been doing a really good job by being fun and relatable, and she brings a lot of toys and treats to her class, and does a lot of positive reinforcement, reward-based teaching, and it works really, really well. My daughter learned the Apostles' Creed super fast because she was told that she would get a little beanie baby owl if she was able to learn it and recite it, and she really wanted that owl, so she did. And just about every class, she's coming home with airheads or something because she participated and she got answers correct and stuff like that. So positive reinforcement. And then anything that you can find that's silly and funny. That her teacher introduced them to this Fruits of the Spirit song. That is fast-paced and just kind of goofy. And they love it, and they'll ask for the Fruits of the Spirit song in the car and stuff like that. So anything that's positive reinforcement and fun, goofy, silly, all that stuff is really, really great for the younger kids. Okay, I always wonder, what does the Bible or Catholic Church say about organ donation and donating a body to science after death? Okay, so this one is somewhat tricky. You can absolutely donate your organs. With donating your body to science after death, you cannot quote me on this because this part gets tricky and I've heard differing things. I've heard some say that you just can't donate your body because you need to be properly interred after death. It is a corporal work of mercy to bury the dead and you need to be buried. That's why you can't be cremated and spread into the ocean and stuff like that, because you need to be interred. I've also heard others say you can donate your body to science essentially for a period of time where if they needed to do something with you, they could. But once that's done, you need to be properly interred. And I don't know that you can actually do that. I think once you donate someone or your own body to science, I think a lot of them just take it and then do what they will with it. I don't know how that aspect works. So that's why you can't quote me on saying you can do it so long as whatever. You have to find those details out. And I would also just go get the blessing of a priest, period, to be certain, / just look it up because I'm not certain. But yes, donating organs, that's definitely totally approved and fine. Donating body to science, it depends. You have to be interred, is the bottom line. How do we argue that the scriptures from Revelation really are about Mary and that she was born without sin? So the born without sin is slightly more tricky to defend. I think you can land there from reason alone, but not everybody who inquires is honest. So be discerning about who's inquiring and why they're asking if they really want the answer. By reason alone, you can deduce that if Jesus is sinless, he would need a sinless mother, right? Like if you look back into the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, Tanakh in the earliest, basically the earliest books of the Old Testament, you'll see in the building after the Israelites leave Egypt and God is with them and he's talking to them about how he wants the Ark of the Covenant to be built. It's really ornate. It's really beautiful. It's perfect. You can't touch it, like all of this stuff. And so if the Ark of the Covenant, the thing that holds God, is so beautiful and so ornate and so perfect and so wonderful, and it needs like this special tent and all of this stuff, if that had to be so specific and beautiful and perfect, essentially, why would the person who is holding God not be held to a similar standard, first of all? And then second of all, just like the practicality of it in and of itself is, if Mary was just a sinner, even if you say, well, she's a really virtuous woman, but she's still a sinner, she's just not, it doesn't make sense, at least not to me. It doesn't make sense to argue that she's going to beget the literal Son of God and not be this like extraordinary level of virtue that can frankly only be obtained if you're sinless. On the Catholic side, I think it is the most recent time that papal infallibility was invoked, was to say that Mary was sinless. I think it might be the second most recent time. So check on that, I guess. But yeah, if you're talking to a Catholic who's struggling with that, it's like, okay, well, papal infallibility was invoked to say this, and we've been told that when the Pope invokes that infallibility, he cannot be wrong, going back to the same books in the Bible, just like when the king was trying to get the sorcerer to curse the Israelites as they were passing through his land, and he couldn't curse them, he could only bless them. It's that same exact principle. You can't invoke papal infallibility and then say something wrong. It's going to be correct. But that side, if you're a Protestant, you probably are going to be like, I don't really care about that though, so that part's tricky. As for the first part, how do you argue that the scriptures from Revelation really are about Mary? I would say the Revelation is arguably the most poetic, I guess you could say, of the books, or at least up there. There's a lot of metaphor and not literal speak, I guess. But I would say read early church fathers, and I would say familiarizing yourself with the scripture and with a lot of the intersections of scripture, like just in this conversation, I was saying, look back here and you see that this woman is described in the book essentially as the new Eve, and instead of being gotten by the dragon or by the serpent, like she's crushing him and she's winning over him, and it's like, okay, well, who does this remind us of? Using our high school literary education, you can reason into that space. All right, I've gotten 2 people say, send me that, please. I don't know what send me that is. I'm sorry. You can hear my daughter singing out there. I can't get back into church. I love your passion for Christ and the Catholic Church. I lost that fire. I'm trying to get back. Please pray for me. Jerome, I will pray for you. I am praying for you. And I have experienced a time where I sort of lost the fire as well. Super condensed version of my story. I sort of didn't care about anything Catholic. I just went to church because I was told to go to church until about 8th grade. And then I had my initial conversion, where I just had the moment of like, Christianity is legit. And I was Catholic just because I was Catholic, not necessarily by choice, but I was definitely a Christian by that point in time. And then I wound up having my second conversion after I had left the church and had a profound experience with the Holy Spirit telling me to go back. And I was super on fire from that point, probably until, I don't know, so I was 19, probably until about 24 or 25, somewhere right around there. And then it wasn't that I stopped knowing the truth. I knew the truth. I just didn't feel that fire. You know, I used to pray every night for a minimum 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. I would just lay there like talking, and not in the vain repetition sense, but like truly having these really wonderful conversations with God. And then when I ran out of stuff to say, I would just pray Hail Marys until I fell asleep for the souls in purgatory. And I sort of lost that fire. And I was wondering, you know, what was happening and, you know, why I didn't have this and what was going on. And I looked into it. And what I read was that when you feel that fire, that is a gift of the Holy Spirit, but you can't have that all the time because it's really easy to have faith when it's just coursing through you all the time. But it's hard to have the same faith when you have to choose it, when it's not just essentially freely given, freely flowing, but when you have to say like, hey, I don't really feel like doing this, but I know it's the right thing to do, and I know I believe, and so I have to, like, for my own posterity, for my own integrity. Like, I don't need to be positively reinforced to do this right thing. So I would encourage you to try and do the right thing even when you don't feel the fire, and you might be surprised. Maybe something will come back to you. You never know. Having grown up Prot, I love the word Prot. It's so funny. Having grown up Prot, I think How to Be Christian is a little too strong. Are you talking about the channel guy? I think you actually mentioned him earlier. I actually don't think he's strong. I think he's goofy and corny and cheesy, and that's honestly right up my alley. I love that kind of humor. And I think that he can come off, what's the word? Redundant, I guess. This was my husband when I started watching him. He was like, he says stuff so many times. Why does he say the same point so many times? And I was like, it's to really drill it in. Like, he's trying to make the point so clear, because sometimes people will make a really good point and then they just sort of gloss right past it, and then that point is lost. And that's not what his content is. His content is very simplified, very thorough, very well explained, and he makes sure that every angle at which you can say this thing, it's said. So I really like his work. He might not be for everybody, and that's totally fine, but what he does serves a very specific purpose, and I love it, and I think he's the perfect person to do it. Jerome, Joey said he's praying for you too. I don't know about other parishes, but the parish I'm going to does RCIA faster. If you were previously baptized in another denomination, I have my first RCIA meeting. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so RCIA is also I don't know what to call it, like boilerplate conversion experience. There are some people who are extremely into Christianity in branched denominations that are not that far off of Catholicism in terms of belief. And sometimes those people will start talking to a priest and will build a relationship with the priest, and then they'll be like, okay, actually, I really want to convert. And can I do it like now? Because I know it's the right thing to do. And usually what happens is the priest uses his best judgment, might kind of like give him a little quiz to see if he has the foundational information that you would get out of RCIA. And then if they know it, they can be baptized essentially right then and there. So the baptism and RCIA program is spread out just because a lot of people don't have that experience and don't have that knowledge base. But I'm excited that you have your first RCIA meeting next Sunday, and if you need a bunch of books to read to bolster your learning, let me know. Sanilla Sebastian says, DJ Mello, yes, you can talk to your parish priest. I had got it at home while I was recovering for a surgery, exactly. Hi, hope everyone's well. I'm well. I hope you guys are well. I'm kind of a born-again Catholic now that I'm doing Catholicism for myself. Are there any tips you would have for me? I would say don't stop. Keep going. Think constantly about how you can be growing in your faith so that you don't ever become stagnant or bored. I know a lot of people who sort of hit a certain threshold in their Catholicity, and think like, this is what I have to be, whatever. I'm just going to pull some stuff out of the thin air, but they'll say like, I go to church on Sunday, I tithe 10%, I make sure that I donate to whatever, whenever anybody asks. Like that's what you need to do to be a really good Catholic. And then they stop, and they don't have like a cultural Catholicism. They don't try and edify their souls and the things that they watch, the music that they listen to, or the books that they read. So advice is, don't stop. Always be pushing, always be seeking more, and realizing that this is a lifelong process, and you'll never ever run out of stuff that you can be learning or doing. Just Jillian says, while you're learning all the prayers of the rosary, do you think it's okay to listen along like on Hallow? So I listen to the rosary a lot. I have ADHD, and so especially when I don't have a rosary in my hands, because sometimes, like, okay, my daily rosary, I tend to do it while I'm brushing my teeth. And so I'm actively brushing my teeth. I don't have a rosary in my hands. Sometimes I'll just lose track of what number I'm on. And so listening to the rosary is totally cool as long as you're actively praying along with it. My issue with ADHD is sometimes I'll be praying it along, and because I'm so used to these prayers, my mind will sort of wander, and I have to keep going, no, come back, no, come back, no, come back, no, come back. And it helps because I will bow my head when I say the name of Jesus, and that's like a physical thing to help me remember to stay in, because I'm always listening for that word. And then I'll also notice, like, I haven't moved my head in a while. Oh, I'm not paying attention, So as long as you're actually paying attention, yes. But if you are using apps or videos as like a crutch so that you don't really have to participate and you're more just listening, like I know some people who've said that they would put it on, but like as they were falling asleep, and they would listen to it to pray the rosary, but they were really falling asleep. Like, that's not really praying, you're sort of like, you're just listening to somebody else pray it, you know what I mean? And if you want to fall asleep listening to the rosary, I think that's great and that's wonderful and that's beautiful, but I wouldn't count it as my daily rosary. So if you're listening and participating, absolutely. If it's just like on, so you can be like, I prayed today, I'm like, it's not really praying. Let's see. Michael says, hi. Hello. Thanks for answering my question. God bless you. Thank you. A question I've always had is, what about the Oriental and Eastern Orthodox churches? Why not convert there? Some say it's more traditional and has remained mostly unchanged throughout history. So, okay, there's a couple of reasons that come to my mind, but it's not exhaustive. I actually have this book right here, again, in that pile of books that I'm endlessly reading. It's called Answering Orthodoxy, A Catholic Response to Attacks from the East by Michael Lofton. It's a Catholic Answers book, right there. Again, this is in my Amazon storefront, and I'm sorry that it's mirrored because of the video, but I like it. I'm not that far into it, but what I have read so far is really good. And I got it mostly because I wanted something all in one spot, but I've read different articles and just different things over time, none of which is exhaustive. But from what I've read, my takeaways are the Oriental and Orthodox really truly did split from the Roman Catholic Church. It's really, really clear that that Jesus instituted Peter as the Pope in the Bible. It's really, really clear when you read the early church fathers that everybody understood that the Pope was not just the first among equals, the Orthodox kind of like to say now, but that he was head and shoulders above the rest. Like, he was the head. And just logically speaking, every institution needs a head. If you have like a board of so many people, if they don't all agree, then you're never really going to get anywhere. And you kind of see that with the lack of ability to have an ecumenical council for the Orthodox. Like, they've tried several times over many decades to get everybody together, but they can't. And then they all some of them are in communion, are in communion with others. I don't know how to say this. So like the Russian Orthodox will be in communion with the Armenian Orthodox, but the Armenian Orthodox aren't in communion with the, some other Orthodoxy based group. Did I say Russian? Russian's not with our Armenians. Maybe the Armenians aren't with the Eastern or something. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with all the different names and it's just not working for me right now. But they won't all be in communion with each other. And that's a really big problem because we want everybody. It's one holy apostolic church. We're all supposed to be in communion with one another. And when you don't have somebody who's like ensuring this agreement between all of the parties, it just sort of becomes a mess, and then like they can't even really govern themselves. And then I also don't super love the whole like Armenian Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, etc., etc. It's like, I just don't understand the tying of the country or the race into it. Like that's a personal thing. Not saying that like a Russian Orthodox church would say you have to be Russian to join, but it still seems kind of weird to me. And then also a lot of what I'm about to say came from that book. A lot of the issues that happened, so the like official split was 1054, but there were several minor splits prior to that, and it was always over different smaller subjects. And it seems like the split in 1054 was just sort of in keeping with a bunch of the splits that had happened previously, but there was never the like we've fully come back togetherness that happened after that. And it just sort of seems inexplicable to me now. Like, I don't really understand why there's still a split, other than people who claim like tradition and people who are just like stubborn, and whether they realize it or not. But regardless, you can be of a certain flavor or rite. Like, you can be Byzantine Catholic, you're still fully in communion with the Catholic Church. You still have all like the Byzantine icons and all these different traditions, so that your totally licit, valid, approved mass doesn't look the same as the Novus Ordo, doesn't look the same as the TLM, whatever. So if you prefer a certain like flavor to your worship, it's out there and you can have it for sure, but you as a church need to be in communion with the Catholic Church. And so for the purposes of like, they truly did split off of us, they will say it's the opposite and that you need to revert to Orthodoxy. It's just, if you look at the history, it's not there. And I don't really dig the whole like races thing that comes along with it. And I don't even understand how the history of the split, like how it's even still perpetuated now, other than for reasons that just don't add up to me. Hello from Melbourne, Australia. Hey, fun fact, when I used to work for Hollister, as I did, those stores, if you don't know, play really, really loud music, and you're often isolated when you work there, so I would get really bored, and I just randomly started talking in an Australian accent. And because I was so bored, I came up with this whole backstory about how I have an Australian accent and why I live in Arizona with an Australian accent, how it doesn't make any sense. And so that if customers ever asked me, I would be like, oh yeah, they like, I was living in Melbourne and then my family, blah, 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 whatever. I don't want to do the accent here because I don't want to offend anyone, but I had this whole backstory, and it was super funny because I would be actively talking to customers in my accent, and then my manager or whoever would come up to me and I would just start talking to them in my normal voice. And then I'd go back and talk to the customer. And then the only person, though, I didn't ever get to use my backstory. The only person to ever ask me where I was from asked if I was from Minnesota. And she wasn't the one checking out. She was like a party to the person who was actively buying something. And I remember looking at her and I was sort of like, what? And her friend looked at her almost with disgust and was like, she's clearly from Australia. Good times. Let's see. I have my first RCIA meeting next Sunday. Congratulations. Since I was previously baptized in another denomination, it makes the process sort of faster. Oh, I think I actually read this earlier. Yep. Why no meat on Fridays during Lent? So no meat on Fridays during Lent is because we take on extra penance and extra doing without, essentially. It's the spirit of Lent. And so you can actually eat meat on Fridays during Lent. I know a priest who intentionally eats meat on Fridays because he loves seafood so much that he was violating the spirit of Lent by eating seafood every Friday. And so he won't eat seafood on Fridays because that's more of the thing to give up for him. So by abstaining from meat and fasting on Fridays, we're mimicking or emulating, I guess I should say, Jesus' 40 days in the desert, which was prefigured by the Israelites' 40 years in the desert. And so we take on this extra suffering because it's good for us. Fasting is good for us. It keeps the devil far away from us. And it actually used to be, no, it still is actually, no meat on every Friday. Was like the hard fast rule. Nobody has meat every Friday. throughout the whole year. And then I can't remember when it was changed, but the wording of it was that it's no longer a hard and fast rule, but it is expected, hoped, anticipated, whatever, that the laity will still choose to do this because it's good. But we're not going to say it's a hard and fast rule because it seems wrong to make it a sin to not do it. But then everybody stopped doing it. So there you go. Fun to catch you. Are you on YouTube? I wish I was on YouTube. I'm not. I don't have, oh my gosh, it's Hallelujah. Hi. I don't have the skills to be on YouTube. I really wish I did. I reached out to a friend to ask if he could help me like figure it out, but he's not getting back to me. I don't know. He doesn't seem all that eager to help me figure stuff out. Like, I don't know what I need. I have no idea how to edit video software. I got on with the Franco TV and had him, he showed me Adobe's stuff. And he was really thorough and he was really good at what he did, but it's just a lot and it's not something that I have the time to learn on my own. So I need somebody to be like the Thursday to my Matt who can help me do this stuff because I can't do it. I really wish I could. How do you overcome anger when non-Catholics speak against our faith, asking for myself? Okay, so Groovy Saint, a couple things. One, righteous anger is legit. I've talked about this before, so I'll give like a speed run through. Right, anger is the perception of an injustice, right? And so perception's key. Sometimes we perceive injustice where there's not an injustice. Like we get triggered just because we're mad or we're insecure or whatever. So we need to be sure that our perception is accurate. And if it's not accurate, then we need to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna walk away from this one because I just don't, you know? But if it is accurate and there is an injustice, you should go after the injustice, but not the person perpetuating the injustice, right? Like Jesus flipped tables and cracked whips, but he didn't hit people with the tables and the whips, right? So always go after the injustice and not the person who perpetuates it. Beyond that, you have to be discerning in terms of like who you go after and why. So I get comments all the time of people who are clearly just being flippant and I don't respond to them. It's like, it's not going to be worth my time. It's pointless. Thanks for boosting my algorithm, like adios, you know? But I have responded to a few people, including yesterday, I just posted one where I posted the video of, you know, where is that in the Bible? And then me opening up the Bible and like going to flip through scriptures. The caption says scripture's coming your way. And then you can see the ... of the caption continuing. I got so many comments of Protestants who were like, where are the scriptures? Because they clearly didn't click on the caption. And so I finally picked one and pinned it who was like still waiting on the scriptures. And I was like, they're still in the comments. Still in the caption. So you could click the caption and see it. You could look at the comments and see the pinned comment where I say where they are if you somehow didn't figure that out. And then you have the answer, like it's right there, you know. But somebody wound up sharing it, the reel to their story and was like, yeah, there are no scriptures here because the Catholics don't have any scriptures to back up their stuff. And I was going to DM them, but they had the feature disabled. So I screenshot it and I was basically like, you didn't do the most basic research to look into this. Like you could just click on the caption or you could just read the comment where I tell you they're in the caption. Like that's really embarrassing for you that you're trying to just like dunk on me right now saying I don't have scriptures when I absolutely do. And I thought about it before I responded, but my reasoning behind it was this person had, I think, like 1,000 followers. And so it's out there enough that I wouldn't want to not respond and then cause the scandal of like, maybe I'm not responding for a reason, right? Because then it can look like I'm not responding because I'm afraid to respond. And then two, by taking it, like they didn't just ask a simple question or comment or whatever, they took it outside of the space that it was in and chose to publicly comment on it. And so if somebody is publicly commenting on something, then I can publicly respond to something, you know? And then also it was just such an idiotic thing to say that I was like, this is embarrassing for you. And so that's why I said it. Now, that person wound up responding because I have my DMs open. They are able to DM me. And they were like, oh, all of those scriptures were taken out of context. Like every single one of them taken out of context. All right. And then they wound up posting another story again saying like, oh, I'm still waiting for those scriptures. And at that point, don't respond, right? Because they're clearly not honestly engaging and they're not going to be honest. Like I had an idiot moment and I didn't click on that caption. My bad. You know what I mean? And I also had received other messages from other Catholic content creators who were like, this person's commented on my stuff before, they don't know what they're talking about. And so it's like, all right, don't even bother at this point, right? But I say that to tell you, like, or at least to show you my thought process and going through this stuff. There are different things to consider. It's not an easy thing to do. And like, even in what I did, I had said like, how embarrassing for you. You know what I mean? Because it is embarrassing, but I would probably give myself like a B on my response to that. I wish I had stuck to my typical tactic of like killing with kindness. You know what I mean? Just because I think that that's better for me and more edifying for those around me. You know what I mean? So run through the thought process, realize you're probably still going to make mistakes, always try to do the right thing, and then like do better going forward as often as you can. Let's see. Court Rose Gold says, we just confirmed 34 sophomores last night in our parish, which is north of Boston. They are moving the age to 8th grade, which I thought was too young, but you said 3rd grade. Do you think they are? I'm assuming it got cut off and that you were going to say, like, do you think they're too young or something? I actually got confirmed in 7th grade. It used to be 11th grade in my diocese, and then they moved it back to 3rd grade. And it's the restored order. So this was the original order. And I do agree with it because of what sacraments are. I've used this analogy before, so if you've heard it, I apologize. I think of receiving the sacraments as a health bar in a video game, right? So when you're born, you don't have anything. And then you get baptized, and then you get this much of a health bar. And then you receive reconciliation, and then it grows this much more. And then you receive communion and confirmation, and it grows. And then over time, you can lose the grace by sinning, but as soon as you go to confession, you restore your full health bar. Well, if you are baptized, and then you receive reconciliation, and then you receive communion, but you don't receive confirmation, you're growing up through some of the most formative years of your life without the grace that would really, really help you go through it. And this is some, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like mysticism, I guess, what I'm about to say, because I have no proof of this, but I really truly feel I notice the difference in kids who have received sacraments and those who haven't. I mean, I literally noticed it in 2nd grade. My 2nd graders before receiving confession, the reconciliation, were rowdy and obnoxious and silly and crazy. And then they received their first reconciliation. And then the next class we had, they were like the most well-behaved ever. And they were much better for the rest of the year as well, but not nearly as good as they were that first week right after confession. And I was just blown away at how they were behaving. I had a teacher's aide, and I kept making eye contact with her, like, are you picking up on what I'm picking up on? Like, these kids are literally so full of grace. Like, they're being so good. And so I like them receiving it younger because I like giving kids this grace before they go through some of these really tumultuous years where they can make some really bad decisions. Oh, I see what you said. Do you think they're developmentally ready? Yes, I do think they're developmentally ready. Jesus said by the angel Gabriel, I don't know what that context was, or what the context for that was. Can I ask, using pre-schism sources or scripture, that each species of the Eucharist are the body, blood, soul? What? Can I ask using... I don't know what that question is, Library of St. Michael. I'm sorry. I have heard Catholic apologists caution against asserting Mary needed to be sinless. The dogma is that she was sinless, and it is proper and fitting, not necessitated. Okay, fair enough. Mary was Immaculate Conception. Yes, it is simple. God cannot dwell in a place of sin. Agreed. God and sin don't mix like oil and water. Agreed. Which Bible do you use? I think I use the New American Bible, the one that I physically sit down and read. But I've also read the New Revised, it's NRSV, New Revised Standard Version. And then, I don't know, a few others. There are different ones that are good for different reasons. I like the New American Bible for readability. It's just when I'm casually reading the scriptures, I like that a lot more. But if I'm trying to get a more accurate translation, I don't always use that one. Let's see. The woman in Revelation 12 gave birth to Christ, therefore she is Mary. There you go. To any soul suffering a loss of fervor in feeling, you are loved. Faith is the will submitting to the intellect. True. We are saved by faith from grace and preserving in works. Library of St. Michael with words of wisdom. Yep, the YouTuber. I find Matt Fradd and his interviews the most appealing. I agree. I've been a fan of Matt Fradd since really early on. I've liked his show for forever. I like Trent Horn and Joe Hirschmeyer too. I read a lot of Joe Hirschmeyer's Catholic Answers articles. I like what he has to say. Trent Horn's obviously fabulous as well. I'm pretty sure converts to Catholicism from similar Christian denominations don't need to be rebaptized as long as it was in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So yeah, they don't need to be rebaptized as long as they were validly baptized, but a lot of times they are given what's called a conditional baptism, just in case, because, I mean, we've even had it in Catholicism where people have said things, come in, like, we baptize you, or whatever, so it's conditional, just in case. What's up, baby?
I'm super duper hungry.
Okay, I'll get off of here in a minute and I'll get you a snack. Does that sound good? Or do you want to grab a mandarin or a banana?
A snack.
Okay. Do you want to get one yourself or do you want me to get it?
Poppy.
Oh, okay. I can get you some poppy in a minute. You go back out and I'll say goodbye and then I'll come out, okay?
But Mommy, make sure I want a whole poppy.
Okay, we'll see about that. I'll finish a few more questions and then I'll go. What do you think of the Latin Mass? It's valid, it's cool, it's legit. I don't go because there's none around me that I'm willing to drive to. So long as it was a valid baptism, you don't need to be baptized. Sometimes if it's doubtful, conditional baptism will be done. Yeah, exactly. Do you think it's bad to listen to secular music? No, as long as it's not pulling you into sin. Some people really can't listen. Like, some songs just have really good rhythm, and I'm one of those people, I can ignore the gross words as long as it's not super gross. If it's super gross, it just repulses me anyway. But, you know, I can listen to songs about, like, shaking butts and whatever. It's not going to tempt me into sin. But some people can't, and so those people shouldn't. What do you think about the Marian apparitions? The ones that are upheld by the church, I totally agree with. The ones that are not and might just be rumor, then I just take them as that. I don't know. That's about it. I miss the receiving of the blood of Christ. Is attending the TLM where I can receive through intinction acceptable? Yes. I mean, the blood is always optional anyway. And also, your diocese can bring it back. It's a diocese by diocese thing at this point. Yeah, so Greek and Moscow are in conflict. Thank you. This is my son. Accommodated one another. Yep. Hi, Ryan, if you're still in here. Oh, okay, these kids are going crazy. I don't know if I can finish these questions. Orthodoxy rejects divine simplicity. They believe God's essence, personhood, and energies, attributes are both God, but just desperate. Wait, what does that say? But desperate, and we only interact with energies and everything. It's weird. Oh, that got cut off. Okay. These kids need snacks and drinks, guys, so it's been fun to chat with you, but I am going to go. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the end. I was hoping to speedrun it, but it's just not going to happen. Bye. Thanks for coming on.